We've made it. It's game day, but there's five big questions for the 49ers for the season and for this game versus the Jets. We're going to go through those. We're going to talk about projected starters for both sides, all that and more. This game day episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Keysar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. It's game day. The San Francisco 49ers have made it to the first game of the year. For the most part, they're full strength. Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, they're all going to be in the house. And this is one of the most exciting times of the year. We made it through Thursday night game, Friday night game, Sunday night games, all the games. Got to enjoy the NFL for everything that it is. And a lot was revealed about some of these teams that are maybe contenders. Maybe a couple look like pretenders, but this is a long season. Let's see how things play out. But now in Showtime, the San Francisco 49ers are ready to get this thing rolling. And they're going to be facing a very good football team in the New York Jets, led by Aaron Rodgers with young stars like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and including some really talented defensive players like Sauce Gardner. Quinnen Williams is pretty darn good as well. They're a good football team. So there's a lot of things that need to be determined in this game. And of course, the 49ers want to get off to a fast start. They want to play well. And if you want to catch a full breakdown of the key matchups and everything, including my predictions, check out the game preview show. That's available and kind of moving today as far as views. So I appreciate everyone that's watching. But there's a lot that's going on with the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, you've got to make sure you're healthy at the right time. And the 49ers are primarily healthy. Now, the Jets are healthy as well, minus the fact that they're missing Hassan Reddick. He has not showed up, and he's not going to be playing in this game, and that could be a big question mark for them. We're going to put some focus on the 49ers, five big questions that need to be answered, and we're going to go through projected starters. So that's what's coming up in this episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on an audio platform, it's 49ers Cutback on Believe. Please give it a 5-star rating. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or just unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. So let's just get this thing rolling. I'm going to go from 5 down to 1 as the big questions that need to be answered on Monday Night Football for the 49ers. And some of these are probably not just going to be answered in week 1, but could also linger and need to be answered in other games as well. Just because you play well in week 1 and answer these questions don't mean that some of them won't be relevant for week 2, week 3, because it is a long season and consistency is the key to playing good football, especially in the NFL. Big highs, those are great. Lows, those stink. But consistency is what makes for good football teams. Those teams that can stay right here the whole time, those are the teams that are going to be there at the end. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about in this. So let's still go with number 5, and it's got to be Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams' health and conditioning. So we know that both of them are there, and when they're playing, they're two of the best players in the NFL. Brandon Ayuk is a top 10 wide receiver in this league. I don't think very many people question that. One of the best route runners, can create separation on his own. And he had over 1,300 yards last year receiving on just over 70 catches. Fantastic year. Brandon Ayuk, though, has been in the midst of a long hold in So he was at the facility, but he wasn't practicing. He's now got a week of practice. And Kyle Shanahan said in his presser that he looked really good. He looked like he had taken care of his body during his time off. That is promising. But I think it's kind of expected that Brandon Ayuk's not going to play his normal amount of reps. Brandon Ayuk normally plays about 98% of the 49ers snaps during games. He rarely comes off the field. I expect that to change pretty significantly in this game because they're going to need time to just make sure they give him a break. And so you're going to expect some of those other guys to have to come in and play in his place. A guy like Chris Conley, a veteran that understands this offense and understands what his roles are, can block pretty well, can make a catch or two. He can definitely bridge the gap for some of those times when Brandon Ayuk's not on the field. But part of the reason the 49ers need to manage his workload early on is to make sure he can build up a callus to contact, but also the fact that they don't want to overwhelm his body and potentially have a soft tissue injury. We need Brandon Ayuk for the long haul. We can't have him missing, 6 to 8 weeks because he pulled a hamstring. So making sure you manage his reps is going to be one of the keys. Kyle Shanahan has somewhat alluded to that this week, that Brandon Ayuk probably won't play all of his normal snaps. And so we'll get to see some younger guys, maybe a Jacob Cowing from time to time. I talked about Chris Conley, not a younger guy, but he's going to get some opportunities. So I think we'll see a lot of Jawan, Chris Conley, and probably some Jacob Cowing in this game as well, as Ayuk probably plays 80 to 85 snaps, percent of the snaps instead of 98% of the snaps. When it comes to Trent Williams, Coach Chris Forrester kind of let the cat out of the bag that potentially Jalen Moore could see a couple series here and there, depending on how Trent Williams' conditioning was holding up. Did his job to try to make sure he was in the best condition possible when he came back. But being able to simulate actual practice is not something that's easy to do. So that's going to be a question mark. Of course, if you're listening to the channel, I've been talking about the fact I thought that was a possibility for Trent Williams, and I still think it is. I think he probably will take a series or two off, and the 49ers will look to Jalen Moore, and that will make for some interesting competitions with Jermaine Johnson or Will McDonald, those guys against Jalen Moore. I worry about Johnson's power against Jalen Moore and Will McDonald's speed against Jalen Moore. So that one will be interesting when it happens, but we'll see. We'll see what happens when that happens. But Trent Williams should be on the field for a lot of snaps in this game. If he's capable of playing all the snaps, he will. And so that's going to be something interesting to monitor in this game. But that's the number 5 big question that has to be answered: Ayuk and Trent's health and conditioning. Number 4, Nick Sorensen, because this is Nick Sorensen's first game calling defense. I have a lot of thought in the fact that I believe he's going to do a good job. So I have a lot of confidence in Nick Sorensen. However, this is still the first time that he's going to do it. And when DeMeco Ryans took over in 2021, the 49ers defense, there was a little bit of a rough patch here and there where he was ironing things out and trying to make sure that he had everything the way it was supposed to be. Now, the 49ers have insulated themselves in case Nick Sorensen needs extra help, extra assistance, maybe a little bit of guidance by bringing in Brandon Staley. So Staley's going to be in the booth. Sorensen's going to be on the sidelines. They are going to have direct communication between the two. They have also been working collaboratively as Brandon Staley has a holistic view of what this defense looks like. And he's going to have conversations with Sorensen about looks, things to anticipate, what's coming. So they're going to work together to try to figure this thing out. I think that helps Nick Sorensen in his process of learning how to call plays. The good thing is he played in this league, so he understands what the players are looking at. He understands what coverage schemes he needs to run against certain offensive looks. He's worked together with every level of the 49ers defense. So because he coached nickels, he had to work with linebackers. Nickel corners have to help with run fits and being in the right spots. The nickel corner also works with safeties and with cornerbacks, and they have to make sure they're in the right spots as far as coverage. They work with D-line as well because of the fits as well when it comes to run. So the fact that he's been able to work with all the levels, not to mention when Johnny Hollins was out for his health issues, he coached linebackers. So this is a guy that's been around. He coached with Pete Carroll. He coached right here in San Francisco with DeMeco Ryans. A lot of experience within the system. And then they insulate with Brandon Staley. So even though these are his first times calling plays, there's a confidence level behind Nick Sorensen that he can handle it. Just listen to the players' comments. They believe that Nick Sorensen can handle the job as well. But this is something we're going to have to see. What is this new look 49ers defense going to look like? What's Sorensen's plan of attack? I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw from D'Amico Ryans, which means that they are going to play the run very tough. They're going to try to stop the run. That's going to be their number one goal. Number two is going to be to filter everything outside. Take away the middle of the field between the hash marks and force everything outside the numbers. Make for long throws. If you do that and long throws to the sidelines, the accuracy goes down a little bit. So those are some things that I believe are going to change from Coach Steve Wilks to what we're going to see from Nick Sorensen. And then I'm curious about what the defensive looks will look like as far as pre-snap to post-snap. That's where I feel like Brandon Staley is going to give some help. And that's when they're going to come up with some exotic looks, some changes. I saw some stuff in training camp that were really, really cool. So I look for this to go well, but it's still a question mark heading into week one. How does Nick Sorensen and this 49ers defense call plays? I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Number three, how do the 49ers play the run? You lost Eric Armstead. You don't have Drake Greenlaw. So you have Devondre Campbell, which is great. Campbell is good at tackling, and he's going to help you in the run game. Former All-Pro, had over 120 tackles in his career, for a season. He's done a great job. So you know what you got there. Your defensive ends are pretty stout as far as the first unit. You got Nick Bosa, you got Leonard Floyd, both play the run well. Last year, Javon Hargrave was not great against the run. It wasn't something he did well. He got handled a little bit when it came to double teams. And as the season went on, it was a struggle for him. Then with Armstead gone, they bring in Malik Collins, and that's not something he's really known for as either, is being a good run stopper. These guys are built on penetration. They're built on speed. They're built on aggressiveness. They're built on lateral movement. What they're not built to do is anchor and prevent offensive players from pushing them back. So that's one of the things that's going to be interesting in this game when the Jets go to some of their gap scheme concepts. How are the 49ers going to handle the interior defensive line being able to occupy blockers and keep offensive linemen off of their linebackers? That's one of the keys to stopping the run when it comes to running in the middle. The Jets, they've reformed their offense a little bit, better on offensive line. We'll go through their starters in a minute, but they've made a real concerted effort to get better up front. And the 49ers know that they've got to get penetration. They've got to make something happen. You're going to have to get some big plays from Hargrave, Malik Collins, and then that rotation between Kevin Givens and Jordan Elliott. Elliott, the best of the against the run of the four. They're going to have to make sure they slow up Breece Hall in this run game. If they don't, the Jets are going to get rolling. So this is going to be a key. But it's not just the interior part of the defense that needs to get better. It's also the run game on the edge. Last season, there was a lot of problems handling the toss crack play. They were coming in and they were going ahead and kicking down the wide nine defensive end. Bosa, last year was Chase Young, whoever, and then getting to the outside, and they were kicking out the forced defender, even if he forced it in. So that's usually the cornerback coming up to make sure they can't get to the sideline, forcing it back in to where you have more help. Then there's an alley defender. So if it's going to the nickel side or the nickel corner side, Yammer to the north, he is the alley defender. He's got to step up and make a play. If it's not, it's got to be one of those safeties. And that's another one of those questions. With Talanoa Hufanga played, the 49ers were really good against the run. He's a great alley defender. Hufanga's not going to be playing in this game, which means George Odom and Jair Brown are going to have to fly up and make those plays. Jair Brown comes up and he flies up. If he's a better tackler than he was last year, he's going to be a very superb alley defender. George Odom has also been a good tackler historically in his career. His time with the Indianapolis Colts, there was one season he didn't miss a single tackle from within the box. So these are things these guys can handle, but they're question marks. How are the 49ers going to play this run game and be consistent at stopping the runs in the middle and stopping the runs on the edge? Going to be one of the keys. We're going to have to get some communication between second-level defenders, telling those first-level guys, those defensive ends, hey, here comes the crack. Here comes the guy blocking you. So that way they can fight against it. If they can fight against it, they can start stretching that play a little bit. Then your force defender kind of pushes it in and you squeeze the gap down. When that happens, your alley defender doesn't have as much space to have to make a tackle. he's not tackling a running back that has room to go either way. He's got to go right at him a little bit. So it's all about spacing. It's all about being in the right location. It's all about communication. But we'll see what kind of improvements the 49ers have made at stopping the run, whether that's the interior part of the defensive line or on the outside. And I think that's one of the big questions coming into this game is how do the 49ers operate and handle this run game for the Jets? Number two, depth at defensive end, and it kind of ties in. But you've got Bosa and you got Floyd, and you feel comfortable with it. Yetur Gross-Matos is out of this game. He's starting to work back. Maybe next week, the week after, real potentials for Gross-Matos. But until then, you've got some things that have to happen. You know you're going to have Robert Beal Jr., and he got a little bit better against the run, but he's still got a lot of improvement. How many snaps is he likely to play in this game? I think it comes down to this. If the 49ers can get early stops and then get a little bit of a lead, they might be able to eliminate some of Nathaniel Hackett's willingness to stick with the run. They might have to throw to catch up. That would take some of the pressure off Robert Beal the run game. But I do believe right now Robert Beal is better against the run than rushing the passer. I think he just hasn't been able to show that burst to get around the edge that we all thought he was going to have with that GTFO stat as he was coming out of Georgia, one of the fastest guys off the ball. We haven't seen those whole shot plays. We haven't seen him be able to dip that shoulder and get those hips down and really be able to get to the quarterback. So bending the corner has been a little bit of a problem for Robert Beal Jr. Then you're going to elevate a defensive end. Most likely it's going to be Sam Okuwanu who's going to be elevated for this game, and he's going to step in and play. And we'll see. I mean, sometimes they elevate players and they don't have them active, so we'll see what happens closer to game time. But Okuwanu plays the run pretty well. He has moves to be able to get to the passer. I saw some good ones during preseason, some swims, some rips. So a talented guy coming off the edge, but 49ers definitely have question marks when it comes to defensive end depth. Those are going to have to be answered in the Jets game and in subsequent games after, because there is a possibility. We'll see. We'll see what happens when Gross-Matos comes back. But if Gross-Matos comes back and Beal is still not playing well, the 49ers might have to look outside the organization to potentially bring in someone to help out. And so that's going to be one of those questions that if it's answered in a positive way, and that means Robert Beal's living up to expectations, fantastic. You roll, you're happy with your team because then you've got Gross-Matos, you got Beal as that second unit, and then you've got guys on the practice squad who you really feel comfortable with, including Sam Okuwanu, that if you need them, you can elevate them and they can help you in case of an injury. So 49ers defensive end depth is going to be one of the keys in this football game. And the number one question for the San Francisco 49ers heading into this game is Sam linebacker. And it's probably going to be Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles that starts at Sam linebacker. And with that being said, the 49ers are definitely not as good at linebacker as they were heading into week one last year. And they added Devondre Campbell, and that's great. He's going to bridge the gap until Dre Greenlaw comes back. But Oren Burks and Dre Greenlaw with Fred Warner was a better unit overall than Warner, Devondre Campbell, and DFF. DFF is real limitations when it comes to stopping the run. He just doesn't pull the trigger fast enough and be able to get downhill. He's good when it comes to coverage, but for the most part, when teams are putting you in a 4-3 look and a base set, they're not exactly trying to attack you in the passing game. Now, they can, right? We've seen that happen, but for the most part, they've got an extra tight end on the field, and they're looking to run the football. So being bad against the run when you're a Sam linebacker, that's not a great situation for the 49ers. So that is an advantage for the opposing team. So the question mark will be, how well is DFF going to play against the run? We know he can track, he can run, he's got speed. So that won't be a problem as he tries to track guys down. Should be pretty decent in coverage. But stopping the run is going to be key. How long do the 49ers stick with DFF before they look to Curtis Robinson? Robinson had a tremendous training camp, a tremendous preseason, and he looked like a guy that could do both. In fact, he pulled the trigger so fast in the run game sometimes, he was getting there quicker than even expected. So we'll see what the 49ers do. Maybe they flip it up on everyone and end up starting Curtis Robinson. That would be great. Maybe they rotate him. That would be fantastic too, so we can get a clear picture on who is the best of the two, and I think it'll be Curtis Robinson. But I think until that Sam linebacker is answered, that question mark, the 49ers are going to have to worry about what happens when it comes to run defense. And so right now, that's a question mark moving forward. Next week against Minnesota, the following week against the Rams, is something that's going to linger for a while until they have an answer. and D. Winters dealing with the ankle injury doesn't exactly help the 49ers when it comes to the Sam linebacker spot, because potentially he could have stepped in some limited snaps. Now, once Dre Greenlaw comes back, as long as everyone stays healthy, Fred, Devondre Campbell, Dre Greenlaw, that's a phenomenal unit. That is great. But we got to get there first. And so DFF is a big question mark for the San Francisco 49ers. So those are 5 questions, big questions that need to be answered. Number 5, Ayuk and Trent's health and conditioning. Number 4, Nick Sorensen's first game as defensive coordinator. Number 3, how the 49ers play the run. Number 2, depth at defensive end. And number 1, the Sam linebacker. Let me know if you agree with the 5 questions or whatever in the comments section. Now let's go to the projected starting offense for both teams. We'll start with the 49ers, and then we will go to the Jets. So 49ers, of course, Brock Purdy is expected to start at quarterback. Running back, Christian McCaffrey, he says he's going to play. He's healthy and ready to go. I know he's listed as limited and was on as questionable. He's going to play in this game. A fullback is going to be Kyle Juszczyk, of course. And then the 49ers get their wide receiver back. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel will start at receivers. Tight end will be all-pro George Kittle. No question marks there. And, of course, Eric Saubert will back him up. Right tackle will be Colton McKivitz. At right guard, the young rookie Dominic Pooney is going to start in the bright lights in his first game, and he gets to line up across from Quinnen Williams and Javon Kinlaw. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I'm excited for him to play, to see how he plays, but also for the rest of the nation to get to see how good Dominic Pooney is. Absolute gem, third-round pick. Center will be Jake Brendel. Left guard Aaron Banks returning from the pinky injury. I know he was listed as questionable. I expect him to make the start. And then all-pro Trent Williams will start at left tackle for the San Francisco 49ers. And for the Jets, they've got the great Aaron Rodgers starting at quarterback. We get to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like in his first game since 2022. I mean, last year, 4 plays. I don't really count that as an opportunity to play within a season. At running back, it'll be Breece Hall. And Breece Hall's a fun player. I mean, talented, big, physical, fast, catch the ball in the backfield. I mean, he can really, really do it all. So he's a talented individual. When you're looking at the wide receiver position, Garrett Wilson, he's great. I mean, the guy is fast. He can get out of his breaks. He's phenomenal. That's going to be a tough matchup for the 49ers cornerback room, who we'll talk about in 1 second. Then they got Xavier Gibson. He'll be playing in the slot. And Alan Lazard will be playing on the outside with Mike Williams, their free agent signing from the Chargers, on a pitch count. He's still recovering from injury, and so he will be on a pitch count. That, according to Robert Saleh, but that is the wide receiver room. When you look at the tight end, it's going to be Tyler Conklin. Conklin's a guy that can make some plays in the passing game, and so the 49ers will have to be aware of where he is at all times. The new made offensive line for the New York Jets, left tackle Tyron Smith. He comes over from Dallas. Then the new signing at left guard, John Simpson. He came over from Baltimore. The young guy, Joe Tippmann, he's going to be the center. Pretty good. Elijah Vera Tucker going into his 5th year out of USC. He will be playing right guard. And then the new addition from Baltimore, Morgan Moses, will be handling the right tackle spot. So offensive line got a lot better. 2 veteran offensive tackles. They've got 2 veteran interior offensive linemen with Vera Tucker and with John Simpson. So we'll see how the 49ers handle business. One of the matchups to watch in this game will be John Simpson versus Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins versus Elijah Vera Tucker. If those guys, Malik Collins and Hargrave, can create havoc, 49ers have a real shot to shut down the Jets football team. So those are the starters on offense for the Jets. On defense for the Jets, it's going to be Jermaine Johnson. He will be playing defensive end, and he will primarily line up opposite of Trent Williams. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll flip him to the other side to go against Colton McKivitz, but that's where he was taking his snaps during the preseason. Same with Will McDonald. He was taking his snaps there as well. They were expecting Hassan Reddick to come in and play the other side and go against guys like Colton McKivitz. He, of course, is holding out, losing $800,000 per game that he holds out. Expensive, but he's looking to get a new contract. So who's going to start at right defensive end? It's going to be Michael Clemens. So Clemens gets the start at right defensive end, and he'll be backed up by Tack McKinley. I do expect to see Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald move on to Colton McKivitz from time to time, especially on obvious pass situations, third and long. On the interior, we talked about it. Quinnen Williams came out in the 2019 draft. He's one of the great ones. Really good interior defensive lineman, and he's going to be lining up next to Javon Kinlaw, coming over from San Francisco. Put on 30 pounds during the offseason. We'll see how he handles that weight. We know he had to get thinner in San Francisco to increase speed and also be able to handle the pressure that was put on his knees, bad knee situations. But now they think he can handle it. So they said he's had a good training camp, and we'll see what it looks like when Kinlaw gets out there with Quinnen Williams. And to back him up, they got Solomon Thomas and Leonard Taylor. Thomas, of course, the former third overall pick for the San Francisco 49ers in 2017. When you look at the linebackers, they're two of the best. Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley, they're going to be holding it down, especially when they're nickel package. They'll be the two linebackers primarily out there. When the 49ers put them in 4-3, and they will put them in base 4-3, 49ers run a lot of 21, 22, and 12 personnel, then that's when Jamian Sherwood is going to come on the field. And the same way the 49ers know that Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is likely to be attacked, the Jets know that Jamian Sherwood is probably going to be attacked because of Christian McCaffrey, that matchup. So that will be something interesting to watch. Not saying Sherwood's a bad player, just saying as far as when you're looking at linebackers, that's one of the weakest links. Look at the cornerback room. It's fantastic. You got Sauce Gardner. He'll be starting, and we'll see if he travels with Brandon Ayuk. DJ Reed, the former 49er, and he'll be out there battling a lot with Deebo Samuel, and we'll see how that looks in this game. And then nickel corner, they got one of the best, Michael Carter. And so a really good cornerback room, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter. At safety, this is another position potentially where you could take advantage of. They've got Chuck Clark, and Chuck Clark is going to be a guy that plays in the box a lot. We'll see how the 49ers attack him. I think George Kittle is probably going to be the player the 49ers try to choose to attack Chuck Clark, and Tony Adams, who will be starting at free safety for the New York Jets. Looking at the 49ers projected starting defense, let's start with the defensive line. At defensive end, Leonard Floyd comes over from Buffalo. He's had a good training camp, and he had a sack in his only preseason look. Didn't play a whole lot due to an MCL injury, but he's good to go, and he's going to be starting opposite of Nick Bosa. Bosa looking to get back to all-pro form and defensive player of the year form from a couple years ago. Last year, the holdout, he said it really affected him. Well, he's had a good training camp, a full off season, and he looks to go in there and make some plays. Malik Collins comes over from the Houston Texans by trade, and he fills in now for the loss of Eric Armstead, and he's going to be lining up next to last year's big signing at defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave. So those guys on the inside to go with Floyd and Bosa, a really good defensive line. At middle linebacker, it's going to be Fred Warner, of course. And then at will linebacker, Devondre Campbell coming over from the Packers. In 2021, he was an all-pro. Let's see if he can live up to that form, because he's got to fill in for Dre Greenlaw until he gets healthy from the Achilles injury. When the 49ers are in 4-3, the Sam linebacker is probably going to be Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. I can't confirm, but this is the kind of reading into the way the 49ers do business, that it'll probably be DFF that starts. And I think those 20% of snaps that they're in that package is going to be interesting. Now, the Jets don't usually run 21, 22, or 12 personnel. They run a lot of 11. That will keep Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles off the field. That's advantage 49ers. We'll talk about that advantage in a second. But if they decide to go heavy and put an extra tight end on, maybe to run the ball, that could be a problem for the 49ers. But will that take them out of some of the pass looks that Aaron Rodgers will feel comfortable in? I think that's a question in this game. At cornerback, Charvarius Mooney-Ward, he's going to, just capitalize on what he did last year. A second team All-Pro last year. Fantastic year. Could have easily been All-Pro. And you look at Deommodore Lenoir, he's going to play on the outside in base 4-3 sets. And when they go to the nickel package, he's going to go inside. I think he's one of the best nickel corners in the entire league. And then on the outside, the new addition, Isaac Yedem. When the 49ers are playing nickel, he's going to come in and play on the outside. And that's going to be your three cornerback look. And it'll probably be predominantly nickel coverage this week because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets like to run a lot of 11 personnel. So Yedem had come over from New Orleans, where he had a really good season last year, including 14 passes defended. So cornerback room for the 49ers is a depth of their team really, really good. And then you look at the safety position, you got George Odom. He'll be filling in place of Talanoa Hufanga, and Jair Brown, the young second-year guy, absolutely had impressed last season, especially at the end of the year and the Super Bowl, and he's just completely gotten even better. Looking at training camp and preseason, he is absolutely phenomenal. So that's it. That's the 5 big questions. That's the presumed starters for both teams in this matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys all really enjoy the game. I know I'm looking forward to it. And of course, after the game, come back here for a live reaction show. We'll go through it. We'll talk about it. Jump in chat. Let me know what you think about each thing that happened in the game, and we'll have a fun conversation about it. Everyone's welcome, and it's just always a blast. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. 49ers Cutback on Believe. Please give it a 5-star rating. Of course, this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.